Welcome to the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal. Welcome to today's episode of the How Did They Do It Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Prack, and today our guest is Ross Hamilton. In a short amount of time, Ross was able to amass a portfolio of 50 residential properties in Wilmington, North Carolina. And just before the real estate crash of 2008, he sold off some of his properties, took the profits, and created Connected Investors, a social network for real estate investors, and privatelenders.com, a marketplace of non-bank private lenders. He was able to later on sell his tech company to First American for approximately $100 million, giving him the resources to do even more. And in the recent years, he was able to expand his real estate empire, buying 176 houses in the past year, focusing primarily on the East Coast. So Ross, welcome to the show. Welcome, and how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And I just want to give some context. If you hear some beeping or noise in the background, I have a crew of people that are building this crazy mountain house for me right now, and I couldn't stop them. I don't want to stop them. I'm up here in Asheville, North Carolina, and building a little retreat out here. So I'm sorry for the beeping and the noise.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for making the time to be out here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So Ross, can you share a little bit about, your background and how you got started with real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can go way back, but what I will say is what got me into real estate is I realized something. Real estate is the best option for people with limited options. You don't need a degree. You don't need anyone to give you any permission. You just need the ability to learn a few simple things and work on it every day. And you can reach any height of financial success that you're looking for. I say I didn't have many options because I didn't come from a rich family. A lot of my family lived in trailers. I thought I was going to be a BMX superstar. I actually trained with Dave Mira. He lived in my town. He had a video game out, and he was like the Michael Jordan or the Tony Hawk of BMX. And I had a really bad injury that kind of put me out of the game, and I had to figure something out. So when I realized most millionaires did it through real estate, I decided to roll up my sleeves and jump all in. And I'm really glad I did. So that's how I found investing in real estate. And at the time, I was approximately 18, 19 years old, which is a pretty pivotal age in extreme sports. But I was on a stretcher for a while. So yeah, found real estate and really love it. Now I'm out here in the mountains and I have my own trails and jumps and all sorts of fun stuff. So made it back to BMX and mountain biking at 40.
Oh, wow. So Ross, at 18, 19, I mean, it was very unfortunate because you had this path that you were set out to do, and that totally got turned upside down and you had to focus on something else. Were you excited to learn about it? Because it was not what you were initially set out to do, but how did you go into it with the mindset?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of similarities, I guess, between even team sports, but in BMX, the people that you rode with, that you were friends with, you also competed against. And you learn from each other. And then in real estate, a lot of your close connections, you're sharing information, you're helping each other, but then you're kind of competing with each other. Every house flip felt like I was pedaling toward a bike jump, right? So it wasn't the path that I thought was going to be my path. However, I was just really excited for the opportunities that real estate could provide for me, because with a little bit of hustle, a few years of rolling up your sleeves, taking a few spills, getting back up, that's all you really need to retire. I mean, a few properties will set you free. And it doesn't matter if you're broke. It doesn't matter if you have a great job. If you don't have passive income, meaning you don't have to do anything and you get paid, then you're on a hamster wheel, no matter how nice of a hamster wheel it might be. Even if you're in your Mercedes Benz, you're still on a hamster wheel and you still have to figure that out. So it was I believed it was my job to figure out, no matter what I was doing, how can I build passive income so money would come in, even if I hurt myself on my bike, I need to be able to provide for my family, whatever that was. So I was really excited about real estate because prior to that life-changing event, I was going to go down the traditional path. And I do not do well in traditional settings. I was a C student in school. My report cards were constantly at a young age. My wife laughs at me, does not follow directions well. I wanted to do my own thing, and real estate had it all because there's so many different aspects of real estate. You could be someone who does very well in school, loves to follow instructions step by step, and there is a path. There's a great path for you. Real estate has every aspect, from negotiating to being like an attorney to dealing with people. You can excel. You could take what you're good at and put it into real estate, and there's a spot for it. And then you surround yourself with people that make up for your shortcomings. Like my assistant helps set this all up because I have a hard time sticking to a schedule. So I need to make sure I have someone who's going to help me stick to a schedule. My first hire was an accountant because I'm very bad at spreadsheets. And I failed my real estate agent test because of the HUD. I almost became a real estate agent, but I failed the test, and then I found real estate investing. So no matter what your strength is or weakness is, you can find a spot in real estate for that to be your superpower.
So was real estate investing the first thing that you started into your first deal? Like, how did that kind of come about for you?
Yeah. So I learned that I started going to Barnes and Noble, if anyone remembers that.
They're still, maybe I think one. Around? I think I saw one, I think a couple of weeks ago. But yes, they're very rare.
At the time, I worked at a warehouse and I would recycle scrap padding. So what that meant is I would drive around in a box truck, pick up padding that goes underneath the carpet. If you've ever done a rehab, that's like the most disgusting stuff because that's where all the pet stuff goes. It's just... Anyway, I would be picking that up out of dumpsters, bringing it back to a warehouse and recycling it. And I would leave this job smelling like whatever I was recycling that day, go to Barnes and Noble, find a book on real estate, sip on their free water because I didn't want to pay for the coffee. And I would leave a little bookmark in the book, or I'd write the page down and I'd treat it like a library. And that's where I got my basic knowledge on real estate. And then I found my local RIA, the Real Estate Investment Association, and started to network with other real estate investors. And there was a gentleman who was talking. He was a local guy. Secrets of Local Real Estate Millionaires was the name of the title from 22 years ago. And after he spoke, I found a little time with him. And I said, hey, if you were my age, if you were 20, would you get your real estate license? Would you get your appraisal license? And he's like, do you want to make money or do you want to show kitchens? I'm like, I want to make money. He's like, then you don't need your license. I'm like, okay, well, great. So I just got that advice, but I took it a step further because I just started showing up at his office every few days, asking him if I could help him with anything. First time he said no. Second time he said no. Third time he said, can you put these signs up for me? I said, sure, great. I get to go put some signs up. So I put up some signs for him. I came back. I'm like, now what? He's like, I don't need you. And he kept giving me these crap jobs because he never agreed to mentor me. I just kept showing up. And then over time, he's like, hey, can you go down to the courthouse and pull the list of people that were in pre-foreclosure? So I went down to the courthouse and I was writing down everyone's information. I'd bring it back. And he kind of became my mentor by me just showing up. And I learned some really cool tricks from him. And he had a whole shelf of courses. So he would leave the office and I would just sit there and I would read courses by Ron LeGrand, Larry Goins, Ted Thomas, the early people that anyone online that is teaching typically learned from someone who learned from one of them. And I would read all these courses and I would just love to consume information and try to apply it. So I learned a few strategies. I worked with my mentor and I figured out how to get my first house at 19. I almost bought it at 18. I just turned 19 when I bought my first my first house, which I still have today. And I essentially use it as a affordable housing for some people in the area that need help. So I'm not maximizing profit for that house, but now I'm at the area in my life where I'm focusing on giving back. I have a lot of charities and nonprofits around affordable housing for single parents and stuff like that. So I saw these people in pre-foreclosure that were losing their house at 18, 19 years old, and they were 40 or 50. And I always wished I could help them, and told myself once I reached a certain level, I'd go back and create a charity. So I've created some charities around that stuff. But anyway, that was a long-winded answer. I even forget the question you asked, but I have 1,000 stories that could kind of come from that. So I'll let you direct it based on your viewers.
No, I love it because persistence and your persistence really paid off. When he was telling you no, and you kept going back to his office, what was it about him, or what did you feel that you could gain from being around him or learn from him that kept you coming every couple of days and just being persistent on trying to add value to him in any way that you can?
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you said add value, because that's really what I was trying to do. I was just there to help. I was looking at it as an unpaid internship. I think just intuitively, something in my gut just told me to kind of keep going in this direction. If I just had one or two little things to do, I just loved doing anything that was in the real estate investment business, because what kept me moving is I knew I just needed a few properties to set me free for life. And at the time, I'm like, if I could just have $10,000 a month coming in passively, man, I would just be hanging out every day at the beach. I lived in a beach town. I wouldn't have to do anything. And then I hit 10,000. I'm like, if I just had 100,000 a month coming in, then I'm like, if I just had so I just kind of kept it going. But I was very motivated to be lazy, if that makes any sense. I just wanted to not have to worry about how I was going to be making money. I didn't want my future in someone else's hands. Yeah, so that's what kept me going. Just that dream of passive and reliable income. And real estate is so simple. It's so easy to understand. Buy low, sell high. I didn't need a 4.0 GPA for that. Now, buying low is tricky. There's a lot of steps there. Selling high is easy right now. But I realized if I just got really good at buying low, being able to find discounted real estate, then I would have so many options, and I'd never have to worry about what I was going to do for money. So buying low, finding deeply discounted properties is what I put all of my time, energy, and effort into.
How did you get from buying that first property to buying 50? And I don't even know what the time period is from that first one to 50.
Yeah, it was just a few years. So the first property that I bought, I did it with traditional financing. It was an investment property. I bought it. I got a good deal on it. And then I just put someone in there to do a rent to own. So I used my credit to buy that property. But I realized that this isn't really going to scale. Right? I can't do that again. Maybe I can get one more property, but that's not going to get me to where I want to be. But it got me, what it did, I have a habit of doing this. I'll jump in to where I can't turn back, and then I have to figure stuff out. Right? It's so easy to tiptoe around it. But I owned a rental property now. I better figure this stuff out. This is what there's no turning back. So to get to the point to where there's no turning back is important, because it's easy to want to do it and put all of these tasks ahead of actually doing it. Well, I want to invest in real estate, but I got to get my office set up first. Well, I need to go to Office Max and get a trash can today. No, you don't need to get a trash can. Throw your stuff in the corner. There was a lot of mental excuses people have before jumping in. But anyway, I bought that first property, and now I'm in the game. There's no turning back. And I kept educating myself and learning, how can I really scale this out? And that's when I learned about creative seller financing. So I bought that property. It had a carport on it. I added some more square footage to it. I got it appraised, and I was able to get an equity line on the property. So now I actually had some money to work with. Maybe it was 50, 60,000 that I was able to pull, which was a lot of money to me at the time, considering I probably had $3,000 or $4,000 in the bank. So cool. I have 50 grand now. So what I learned was how to buy properties through seller financing to where didn't have to use much of that money. And then I would sell them on with seller financing or with a lease option of some sort to where I can get down payment money. So I was able to do that over and over and over again and amass with $50,000. I was able to grow it into about 50 properties by the time I was around 23. And while I was doing this, I actually wrote a book, Real Estate Investing in Your 20s. It's on Amazon. And that book is very interesting because it's essentially my published diary. It's just my lessons as I was going. And I started out broke. So I don't think anyone's ever wrote a real estate book that I've come across where they started out broke and then they made it. Usually it's a look back on what happened. But this is, you'll see the date next to things and the lessons. And it's a really cool book. So that kind of gives the full story. But I built up a big portfolio and of properties through creative seller financing.
So in 2008, before 2008, you had sold, maybe you saw the lining in the sky or some type of whatever you had figured out, but you were able to sell some of your properties in that 2008 timeframe. At that time, people bought a lot of real estate, lost a lot of money. What kept you from losing money at that time? And what did you do a little bit differently?
A few things. Because I was buying with seller financing, there was a lot of flexibility in what I could do. So that was important because there weren't these expensive bank loans. A lot of people used adjustable rate mortgages back then, and they just got hammered. And they pulled out way more money than the property was worth, which I did one time on the first property to get the equity lines to buy the other ones. All my properties cash flowed, which was really good. And the reason that I was able to, I didn't know the market was going to crash. I just knew that starting with zero, building up that portfolio, I was worth millions of dollars on paper, but I was broke as a joke because there's always something going on when you have 50 properties. So if I made money, I would have to spend money on something. So I just kind of got to a point where I'm like, I need to cash in on some of this, and just started to sell off some of those properties, not because I knew it was coming, just because it was time for me to sell them off. So there was definitely some maybe luck there or intuition I didn't realize. And there was one interesting thing that I had going for me. One of the markets that I was in was Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a military town. At the time, they had just closed 2 or 3 military bases and were consolidating everyone in Jacksonville. So even after the crash, property prices in that area were still going up, and everyone had financing because it was VA financing. So some of my oldest YouTube videos from that time, I'm wholesaling and flipping houses like so fast when no one else could even find buyers. But it was because I was in the right market. And I loved that. And actually Jacksonville had a lot of weird things going for it. The sewer system was at 85%. So developers couldn't come in and just build a lot of properties. And that's why we're in the crunch we're in right now as far as inventory goes. Because of the supply chain disruptions, builders haven't been able to come in and just build a lot of houses. If they could, there would be inventory, but that's one of the biggest things that's contributing to the lack of inventory and housing prices going up, the supply chain issues. So yeah, it was the way I bought, where I bought, and when I sold that allowed me to have that first big cash out of most of my properties. But at the same time, I was using that money to invest in other assets that I believe would pay me for years to come, which is when I started to build the Connected Investors platform.
I see. So at that time of the 50 properties, it sounded like you were operating it and managing it all on your own.
Yes. Not by design. I had had some very unfortunate relationships with property management companies that went out of business when they were collecting rent from me. So I lost a lot of months of rent for a lot of properties. It was actually while I went on a 2-month honeymoon. And when I got back, my property management company was out of business.
Oh,
And they
wow.
had 2 months worth of rent. And I couldn't, that was a wake up call there. So at the time, when you're scrappy, you'll work with people that have the best price, not necessarily the best reputation and the longest lasting, business, because every dollar matters. So I made a mistake there for sure. So then I started to let go of it, but then I had to take it back in house.
So why did you decide to create Connected Investors and that platform? And how did you grow and scale it?
Yeah, great question. So essentially, I realized the more people I was connected with, the more money I made in real estate. And if at that time, when I first started it, MySpace was out and Facebook was only in a few colleges, which I wasn't smart enough to get into. So I wasn't even allowed to be on Facebook. My cousin had to show me around Facebook. And I said, you know what, this is great, but it would be fantastic if this was all just real estate. And at the time, there was nothing like that out there. It was also a lot harder to build websites back then. So I started using the profits from the properties I was selling to seed the development of Connected Investors. Then I would use Connected Investors to find properties to buy and properties to flip. And all of the money I was making was going into the platform. And we worked with a lot of educators at the time that loved to tell their students about it. So people were signing up all across the nation. It was growing. We didn't really have a way to make money at the time other than me doing deals with people. So it was very organic. Made a whole lot of mistakes, but kind of kept tripping up and started to get some real steam with the platform. Yeah. So we just started. My real estate business had been pretty automated. So I was able to focus 80% of my attention on growing Connected Investors. And that's what I did for about 15 years.
So then after you sold off Connected Investors, what did you focus on the real estate side afterwards? What did you take those profits? And then was it all in the single family space, or what else did you do?
Yeah. Well, prior to selling it, I will say that what had Connected Investors take off is when we introduced the private lender side of our platform, to where investors could essentially upload a deal and private non-bank lenders would compete for their business. That really disrupted the space. And Connected Investors was doing $4 or $5 billion a month in these applications and these investment loans. So now we had so many people coming in for funding. They would find our community. They would see that they can find motivated seller lists inside our site. So Connected Investors took off. We had to get the best data we could. First American, the company I sold to, was the best data provider out there. They provide data to everyone else that any streaming platforms, even the big people like CoreLogic, they're all buying data from First American. So when they came to us to purchase us, we were really excited because we knew that they could provide innovative solutions inside Connected Investors for our members that we're in the process of rolling out now. But after I sold Connected Investors, I did focus on buying huge portfolios of single family properties, where I'd buy 100 plus properties at a time all around the nation. And then some of our members send us properties. I fund some of the properties for our members. So I try to keep doing what I know, which is real estate. So a decent percentage of my wealth now is in real estate, but I've always been good at finding discounted property. So that's where I'm at.
Where do you see real estate going from here on out, and what's your next focus?
Where real estate is going, I'm going to answer this just slightly different than you might hear in other places. Real estate essentially is being automated and systematized by the big hedge funds and the big banks out there, you're not going to see foreclosures and at the rate that we did, even if we had that many foreclosures. Because what's happening now is these big funds are just going right to the bank, just buying thousands and thousands and thousands of properties. Where in the last crash, that didn't happen. They weren't set up like that. So real estate is definitely changing there. And with artificial intelligence and everything that you're seeing with that, there are some companies that are able really to streamline things that have never been streamlined before and transact real estate faster than ever. So it's changing rapidly right now. I truly believe right now, if you're interested in real estate, you got to jump in, because I don't think your kids will be able to invest in real estate like we are. What your kids will do is every house is essentially being turned into a stock to where you can buy pieces of properties. You're seeing that a little bit behind the scenes right now. There's some companies that have had some breakthroughs in that, but everyone's trying to increase the liquidity of real estate, make it easier to transact, easier to break up. So in the future, where real estate is heading is every house will be its own stock that can be sold. You can sell off pieces of your house. So right now, I think is the last time of like the mom and pop real estate investor, to where the convenience of selling to these big funds or these equity-based platforms is just going to be so much better than selling to a investor, that it's going to be hard to do what we're currently doing and everything that I've taught, in 5 years from now. So right now it's like, get on the horse, get in the game, go pile up some properties, buy at good prices. Your kids will definitely thank you for it.
So Ross, how has real estate investing impacted your life?
Not at all. Just been a total distraction. And no, it like I said in the beginning, it's real estate is the best option for people with no options. There's no roof over your head. You have creativity. It's the cool thing is with real estate is you can mess up so many times, and it just seems to erase a lot of mistakes. Even if I had bought wrong, the appreciation hikes that we've seen have erased all the mistakes. So it's just kind of a guaranteed path forward. There's the haves and the have-nots. And a lot of people don't really understand this, but if you didn't own real estate in 2019, you lost a lot more than you realize. Some of my friends, they didn't buy real estate because I don't like this house, whatever it is, for some picky little reasons. Now that real estate is worth $200,000-$300,000 more. So if they want that house, they have to pay more. But everyone that had real estate got this little wealth kick, and they didn't. So now they're behind like $500,000. So that's why I've started a lot of these nonprofits and charities, just because there's this big kind of breakage, like an iceberg floating in different directions. So it's really unfortunate for people who didn't have the opportunity to buy real estate prior to what we've seen. But if you learn how to buy at a discount, you can kind of get a do-over, right? But it has to happen. It has to happen now. You have to jump in now. You're not going to time the market right. Just buy below retail, get creative, and watch how it all shakes out.
And what is the one thing that you know now about real estate that you wish you knew when you first started?
One thing that I know now about real estate, pretty much what I just said, because I look back at when I've been apprehensive to buy, and I'm like, man, I should have been buying heavier. Like anytime I slowed down my real estate buying, it was a bad idea. So that's what I would tell myself. Don't be scared. Buy below retail. Just keep buying. One of the mistakes I made as a new real estate investor was I would stop marketing once I had a deal I was working. So I'd work really hard. Oh, I got a great deal. Then I'd be working so hard on that deal, I'd stop my marketing, and most deals fall apart. So then I had to start all over again. So I had to get this flywheel going again. So I would say if you're new, if you're growing, never stop looking for deals. Even if you think you have that great deal, it's going to fall apart. Most likely. If it doesn't, great. But yeah, so just kind of keep building, keep going.
And what is the one thing that sets the successful people apart in real estate investing?
I would say just your forget real estate. I can get maybe real estate specific, but your habits are everything. People that have successful habits will be successful in no matter what they do. Real estate just gives you that extra flywheel effect to where it's one of the basic needs: food, water, shelter, right? So stocks are not a basic need. Crypto is not a basic need yet, right? But your habits are just so important. And I think there's a little bit of optimism there too, that you have to have, because you get a lot of no's in real estate. You get way, way more no's. So what happens is a lot of people, when they call someone up or they're negotiating with them, if I say, hey, do you expect this person to take your offer? They'd say, no, I don't. But I expect everyone to take my offer. Hey, you just got 5 no's. What's the next person going to say? They're going to say yes, right? You have to be like, you have to almost hypnotize yourself into this exciting optimism. But there's nothing else. There's no better real use of your time, because real estate will pay you forever and ever and ever. So you can work a lot harder at stuff that might have an immediate result of making sure you could pay your rent this month or whatever it might be. But real estate is one of those things you can work really hard at, and then you can let go and take some deep breaths.
Awesome. And Ross, where can our listeners find out more about you?
Yeah, well, I have a lot going on from my charity to now investors invest alongside of me, people that don't want to do all the groundwork. I fund deals, and we have a lot of cool data at Connected Investors, because there's just so many different directions. If you just email me at ross@successcap.com, ross@successcap.com, you'll get an automatic email reply that if you're interested in becoming part of the charity, which is where all my focus is right now, looking for volunteers, looking for people to donate, looking for introductions to other housing charities, you can find some information there. If you want to invest alongside of me, if you're looking for funding, that's kind of a catch-all there, ross@successcap.com.
Awesome. Ross, thank you so much for all of your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.